Before I do start this video, make sure to use my TCG player affiliate down below if you're looking for any of these singles that I talk about today. Also, this channel is sponsored by Arcane Fortress. If you're looking for the best deck boxes around, make sure to use my link down below in the description to check them out. One other way you can support the channel is by becoming a patron. There are some great benefits of being a patron to the channel, such as giveaways, deck advice, and more when you do join. Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Devin coming back at you with another video today on PubStomp MTG, and in this video today I'm going to be discussing 5 underrated commanders for Magic the Gathering, and I did a video like this quite a while ago discussing 5 other underrated commanders. I wanted to dive into it a little bit further because I feel like there's a lot of other commanders. I try to count how much commanders there is in the commander format, and I think there's way too much, even in the year alone. Besides that point, I just want to discuss 5 underrated commanders. They're all based off of power level, they're also based off of uniqueness, and how you could build around them. And so without further ado, let's get us started. So the first commander I did want to bring your attention to is technically a pair with 2 commanders that are partners. So the commanders I am referring to are Jeska Thrice Reborn and Ikra Shadiki the Usurper, with the companion of Obosh the Prey Piercer. So to be quite fair, this was a deck that I've been wanting to build for quite a while, and I felt like it hasn't been right so far. There hasn't been a whole lot of damage doublers or triplers that I wanted to put in this deck. Your whole entire deck needs to be odd converted mana cost. Going back to the conception of this deck, why did I choose Jeska Thrice Reborn and Ikra Shadiki? For the first one with Ikra, the reason why this one is in here is specifically because of colors for green and black. There's a lot of ways we could double the power and toughness of our cards with green, and with black we need to have that with Obosh the Prey Piercer. And of course with Jeska Thrice Reborn, it's kind of a no-brainer with that 0 ability. Choose target creature until your next turn. If that creature would deal combat damage to one of your opponents, it deals triple that damage to that player instead. So this commander is just matching the theme of dealing double and triple damage to our opponents. This is just one way we could obviously go for a slam dunk by dealing triple and maybe even a double damage if we have Obosh on the battlefield. Outside of your commanders, there are a decent amount of options where you could actually double the damage with your creatures or spells. Just to name a couple, you have cards like Isengard Unleashed, where you could deal triple damage. You could deal double damage with Uncivil Unrest as long as a creature you control has a +1/+1 counter on it. Of course, you have cards like Angrath Marauders and Gratuitous Violence, which are essentially the same thing. You're dealing double the damage. And if you're feeling a little extra spicy and not afraid to take a punch, Dictate of the Twin Gods is another option you could take advantage of. There's also another focus of doubling the power and toughness of our creatures, which will in fact just double the damage in a way. So obviously a card like Xenagos God of Revels will get the job done for you. This is one of my first commander decks that I've ever built itself. It has the ability at the beginning of combat on your turn, another target creature you control gains haste and gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. Alright, so you caught me. So technically we're not doubling the power and toughness of our creatures with this one. This one is actually just doubling the power of your creature, which obviously is what we want to do because we want to just double the damage at our opponent's face. Another option like Xenagos God of Revels is Zopandra Hunger Dominus. This is an odd converted mana cost card, so obviously this is a shoe-in. At the beginning of each combat, double the power and toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. So this is basically like a Xenagos God of Revels but on steroids. And of course there's an enchantment version of this with Unnatural Growth. Don't let the 4 green pips fool you because it's pretty easy to cast, not gonna lie, but it has the same effect as Zopandra Hunger Dominus. At the beginning of each combat, you double the power of toughness of each creature you control until end of turn. So again, it's going into that same kind of concept. We're just trying to double and triple. This is just basically a big giant math deck, if I'm just being quite frank. Again, this is the type of deck that I've been wanting to throw in paper for quite a while. I may eventually do it, we'll see. But again, this is just an idea to throw out if you want to build around this. Another heavily underrated commander that I did want to highlight came from Dominaria United, and from what I remember in that set, there was so much legendary creatures in the commander product and also in the main set, and you'll actually see another Dominaria United commander in this list. This is going to be the first one. So let's talk about Tetsuo Imperial Champion. So as far as unique commander, this is interesting in the design aspect of Grixis basically becoming a Voltron strategy mixed in with a Spellslinger. In that set though, they reimagined a lot of legendary creatures from Legends like Tetsuo Umezawa, but they totally beefed him up, for example, with this version with Tetsuo Imperial Champion. So let's read what he does. So for blue, black, and a red with a 3/3 body human samurai, whenever Tetsuo Imperial Champion attacks, if it's equipped, choose 1. Tetsuo deals damage equal to the highest mana value among equipment attached to it to any target. The second mode reads, you may cast an instant or sorcery spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the highest mana value among equipment attached to Tetsuo without paying its mana cost. So this commander can be extremely extremely powerful, dealing a lot of damage based off of the amount of equipment you do have with high CMC, or you focus on casting free spells. The game plan in this deck that you may want to follow is focusing on having a lot of big equipments, but that have the reduced cost. For example, Excalibur, Sword of Eden is incredible. The spell costs X less to cast for X is the total mana value of historic permanents you control. So this has that Galta-like effect. It is 12 mana, but it can be reduced. Your creature will get +10, +0, and Vigilance. That's quite crazy. So you can either deal a lot of damage with that when you attack with your commander, or basically cast any instant and sorcery for free from your hand. Another similar card is Embercleave. This is a great effect because it can be just potentially reduced to 2 red mana depending on how much creatures are swinging. You can flash this in and auto-equip it to one of your creatures. An equipped creature will get +1/+1 and has double strike and trample, which is all really good stats too. This commander outside of an equipment theme is pretty flexible. Obviously the main focus is equipment, but you have a lot of ways where you can reduce the mana cost of your equipment, and depending on the type of equipments you do have on the battlefield, you could definitely go for extra combats or extra turns. I know that's a little degenerate and not a lot of people like that, but that's one way you can do it, casting those free spells. So again, a pretty neat commander. It's not your typical Boros commander because it's not even Boros color combinations, it's like Grixis color combinations, which is pretty neat. The next commanders hail from Ikoria. There's a lot of cool partner commanders that we're partner with, and I feel like one partner combination was outshined by the rest, and that's Sylvar, Devourer of the Free, and Trin, Champion of Freedom. This has the big theme of sacrificing humans of all things. Sylvar, Devourer of the Free does read for 3 black and a red with a 4/2 body. Partner with Trin, Champion of Freedom. Menace, sacrifice a human, put a 1/1 counter on Sylvar, Devourer of the Free. It gains indestructible until end of turn. And with Trin, Champion of Freedom for 3 and a white with a 3/3 body. Partner with Sylvar, Devourer of Free. At the beginning of your end step, if you attack this turn, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So I don't know if Trin made a deal with Sylvar like, hey, I want to make sure that I survive, so here's these humans I could keep feeding you, and like Sylvar's like, sure, why not? Either way, I totally believe that they're in cahoots. But obviously the main goal of this deck is putting a bunch of humans down on the battlefield so that you can sacrifice them with Sylvar. This is like a aristocrat slash Voltron strategy because Sylvar can gain indestructible and bust itself up each time. There are a lot of humans that you could add to the deck that really boost the power level. Adeline, Resplendent Cathar is one that I think about because you are aggressive strategy. You're trying to attack so that you can make 1/1 humans so that you can sacrifice them with your commander, but also just having a lot of humans on the battlefield, so if somebody tries to remove your commander, you can just sacrifice 1 human, gain indestructible, not have to worry about it. So when you're making all those tokens, you could absolutely profit off of that with Camball, Profiteering Mayor. This did come out of Outlaws of Thunder Junction. This is great because whenever 1 or more tokens enter the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. There's a lot of aristocrat packages that we could have in this deck because our commander is a free sack outlet. We have nothing to pay, no tapping, no paying mana, so we could use Zulapor Cutthroats and all those Blood Artist effects too. Another absolute banger is Caesar, Legion's Emperor. This kind of goes hand in hand with our commander. You could actually have it as the commander if you really wanted to, but Caesar is quite popular. This guy, when you do attack, makes 2 1/1 tokens, you draw cards, or you can deal damage based off the amount of tokens you do have on the battlefield. So either way, this is going to be incredible in the deck. So there is a lot to like about this partner pair. You're going into an aggressive strategy with a sacrifice theme. Also, you can go into a little bit of Voltron theme, buffing up your commander with those 1/1 counters and indestructible. So that's why I wanted to mention this one. I don't think anybody is really building this one as much as compared to the other ones, so that's why this pair made it on the list. I did mention that we have another Dominaria United card, and that's going to be Jedit Ojanen Mercenary, and I feel like this one is heavily underrated. So for 1 white and a blue, it's a 3/3 body. Whenever Jedit Ojanen Mercenary or another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay a green mana. If you do, create a 2/2 green cat warrior creature token with Forest Walk. So there's a lot of reasons why this card is pretty underrated in my opinion. Just the fact that you're playing a Legendary Matters theme in Bant color combination is pretty good, but you can go wide with a giant cat army that does have Forest Walk. So Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth is obviously the biggest auto-include of all auto-includes in this deck, because all lands on the battlefield, including your opponent's lands, are going to be forest in addition to their other types, so obviously all your cats are just going to be unblockable at that point. So there are a couple different strategies you can go with in this deck. Blinking is obviously a great choice because when you blink a creature on the battlefield, that's a legendary. You have a return on the battlefield and it'll trigger your commander making another cat when you pay into that green. And when you're making those tokens, why not double them with like token doublers, for example? Plus, if you do have cards like Benny Brax, you can get some extra card draw. And because you are going wide with a giant cat army, you might as well get more card draw using Toski-like effects. Whenever you're dealing combat damage with a creature, you just get an extra card per creature. But obviously one of the best new cards that you can add to this deck is Ocelot Pride. I know it's quite expensive. I think it's like $60 $60 right now, but if you could proxy it, definitely proxy it, because I don't know if it's going to be up there for that long. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But again, just going into that legendary theme, focusing on having a lot of legendary creatures enter the battlefield, get those ETBs, double those ETBs even, and put some token doublers, for example, so that you could just make the huge cat army, swing in, get some card advantage. I did have this deck in paper a long time ago, and it was a blast to play, but usually I only keep one color combination of a deck at a time. For example, with band color combinations, I had Jedid Ojanin at first, but then Bernard Ginger Sculptor, but then I saw the new Helga Skittish Seer, so I just switch around a couple times, but I don't know if I'm going to switch ever again with Helga Skittish Seer. But again, if you want to make a huge cat army, this is one way to go for it. And the last commander I do want to talk about is actually a recommendation from someone in my Discord, Nunez El Capitan, and Nunez talked about specifically making this commander too, and is surprised that it does not see as much play. And usually from time to time I will ask for advice on my Discord. If you haven't already joined, make sure to join down below in the description. But Nunez gave an absolute great suggestion for Othari Sun's Glory, because honestly I've actually never seen it played or even played against it, and to be quite honest, it seems very powerful. So let's read what it does. So for 3 red and a white with a 3/3 body with flying, lifelink, and haste, whenever it attacks you get an experience counter, then create a 2/2 red rebel creature token that's tapped and attacking for each experience counter you have. You could also pay 2 red and a white, tap an untapped rebel you control, return Othari from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So this commander focuses on experience counters, and it'll just grant you a bunch of rebels on the battlefield. And one interesting point to make out on this commander is the fact that it essentially evades commander attacks, and you can return it to the battlefield tapped at instant speed. So if you have a rebel on the battlefield, you just pay into that mana cost when it's on the graveyard, and on an opponent's turn you can just put it onto the battlefield tapped and then go on your turn and have it untapped. So the game plan is pretty simple with Othari, getting as much tokens out on the battlefield and swinging with them and winning the game, the classic kind of commander that you want to be playing. Because a lot of tokens are entering the battlefield at the same time, you might as well use some impact trimmer like effects so that you could really increase the damage input of your deck. And just like I talked about with Jedid Ojanin, very similar build where you're trying to get a lot of tokens on the battlefield. You can get some token doublers and some other cards like Benny Brax that give you card advantage. And what's very nice about Benny Brax is the fact that it has Convoke. There's a lot of ways we could convoke out a lot of different spells because we're putting a lot of rebels on the battlefield. And the more combats we could get with Othari, the more we could go ahead and make more tokens and possibly go for the win from there. And I will be quite honest, because there's so much commanders coming out every single year, I feel like there's more and more every single time. Othari Sun's Glory just kind of flew under the radar for me. So definitely one that I missed, but I feel like could be very powerful with the right type of build. So with all that said, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys so much for coming by and watching this video on 5 more underrated commanders that you should try for yourself. With every year seeming like it's the year of commander, it feels like it could be overwhelming with the type of commander choices that we can find, but there's some that are along the way that are underutilized and can be a great build, honestly. But I would love to hear from you. What are your thoughts and opinions about these commanders? Are there any other commanders that are underrated in your mind? I'd love to hear your thoughts again. Also, make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And with that out of the way, thank you for stomping by.